is Christina Barn. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barn. Today we are going to be talking about, my title is Republicans' Big Mistake. It was going to be a lot angrier than that, the title, but I'm upset about the Republicans and what they're doing with the bipartisan effort of, they're saying protect schools and all the other kind of stuff. And I'm not going to say everything in the bill is bad. I think there's some good ideas in there. However, people are really upset about the red flag laws, and there's people really puzzled about it because, let's be frank, it looks like they're going to shove it through, especially since McConnell is for it. So that's where we're at. It looks like it's going to go ahead and they're going to pass it. But the text of the bill just got released last night, and they already we're talking about how they're forcing through a vote to open up discussion and everything. Mike Lee talked about it, and Rubio's we got to talk about they're just trying to push this through without giving us time to even read it. That's insane. And there's people I'm proud to vote for it. I'm like, did you read it yet? How did you read it already? And it's a bill that references other laws and changes other laws, which is going to affect other laws. So it's not as simple as people reading things kind of straightforward too. So it's going to take some time to do things properly. But unfortunately, we live in a world where people are like, do something, do something, do something. And just shouting, do something, and then just throwing some money at some places doesn't actually fix problems. So on top of, does this really achieve what you want it to achieve? There's that question. And there's also the red flag laws. A lot of people don't like them and are very concerned about due process, and if people are able to get them, because if you don't know what red flag law is, someone can flag you and believe that you're a danger to yourself and other people. The police can show up and take your guns, and sometimes without you having noticed that they're coming to do that, and without giving you time to petition to say, hey, what do you like to fight against it? And then you will have to prove to the court after your property's been confiscated that you deserve to have your Second Amendment rights restored. So my thing is that if you are accused of doing something heinous enough to lose your Second Amendment rights, then you need to have proper due process to handle that. And so they want to strengthen this stuff, and they use stuff like the recent shootings with Uvalde or the Buffalo shooting. New York has red flag laws, and they apparently still didn't stop this crazy person who announced, by the way, that they want to do a school shooting from getting a gun. And in the case with Uvalde, people usually, when these things happen, people like me and other folks are like, let's wait for some more information. Not because we're trying to stall, but because you cannot solve a problem unless you understand how it happened. So this person, the shooter, he was crazy. He was violent. If people had reported certain things, you shouldn't have been able to access a gun. But if you don't report things aren't going to show up and get flagged, and things are going to pop on a background check. So there's lots of ways that story could have ended differently from that front. But there's certainly ways that things could have ended differently from the police officers not acting. So there was a story that dropped just as a recent that's blowing up right now, which earlier in the month, we learned that there was a phone call between a teacher who was killed and her husband, who was who was a police officer, I think, for the district. But the police officer, the husband, he tried to go in, and they detained him and took his firearm. So you have a police officer who went in, who tried to save his wife, and they stopped him from doing so. And there's pictures coming out and video footage because they're investigating what went down. And they have like riot shields, and they have their vests on, their vests that they petitioned and got a grant for, to able to give everyone these you know these vests that can withstand like these rifles and stuff. So it doesn't really um there's a lot of problems that happen here where the system failed. And I'm not saying there's not more that you can do to try to keep this from happening, but um the when things fail and you don't report things, or when people who are supposed to act and protect you don't do that, and they've even impeded and stopped other people who did want to make a difference from doing something, how are you going to plan for that? And people are like, we need justice, we need justice. I don't even know what you all can do, because police actually don't have a duty to protect you. Now, I don't know if that husband could do some kind of civil case, because they straight up stopped him from rescuing his wife. I don't know if there's something they can do with civil court, but the Supreme Court has ruled like, hey, police don't have a constitutional duty to protect you. So people who want some kind of fullest extent to the law with these guys, I don't know if there is an actual solution there. But that's why I'm kind of more on the, I think teachers should carry. I was kind of more on the fence for that. Not because why should they not be able to protect themselves? I'm like, I still have like reservations, and I'm concerned about, other people who might trust with a firearm or feel as comfortable with. But I mean, you can run into that scenario every day in life, but people have a right to defend themselves. And I would not want to be in a situation where I'm trapped in a room with a psychopath and the police are literally stopping people from coming in and saving my life. That is literally what happened in Uvalde. So you have all these things going on where you had a failure within the system, within the government system. They're supposed to protect the citizens. They did not. Not only the citizens, little tiny children. They did not act appropriately. And so our Republicans, what do? They get together and they do it in the Senate, because they know whatever they do in the House, it's not going to get through unless the Senate agrees to it. So you had a bipartisan effort with Republicans that got together and they said, you know what? We're going to go ahead. We're going to make sure that we make this legislation. And they talked about it for a couple of weeks and they put something out. And some people are like, man, you can tell this is rushed, and they want to rush people to go ahead and vote for it. As Rubio and other people are noting, like, we need time to even read this. We're not like, we don't want to vote for this and not have even read it. And Rand Paul was like, I don't want to support anything that has like the red flags stuff in there. And again, there's things in there that you should discuss, and things in there that are actually good. But there's things in there that people aren't going to want to support, but you have enough people, frankly, that I think it's going to get through. The only way I think it's not going to get through is if you have people maybe in the House like AOC or somebody, a group of people who try to hold up the vote, unless you get like some crazy stuff in there. But I don't know if they will do that, because there's a lot of really angry Republicans right now. So the Republicans are about to give Biden a legislative win while ticking off their base, while they're like on the eve. I know it's still a while from election, but it's going to be like a red wave slaughter. And the Republicans have come together and said, you know what? We really need to shoot ourselves in the foot. Like, why? Why would you do that? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Also, the mayor of New York is, I don't know, he just has the craziest priorities. And I think he's probably going to be a long time contender, that they want to try to prop him up in 2024 and other stuff like that. But he has like the weirdest priorities. There's a video of him like so like happy because they destroyed like a bunch of dirt bikes in New York City. And I'm just like, this is strange. This is weird. And also he was, upset at city councilwomen for not being cool with drag time story hour stuff. So we're gonna also be talking about that. And also there's this video from like 60 Minutes Australia. And I think I don't know if it's recent, but they decided to repost it, I guess, in a coordination from there was a decision that came out that swimmers can't like on the world stage or where for competing for swimming, that you can't have transgender women compete. So that was a big story. So someone like Leah Thomas would be shut down. Um, but there's also a decision for like rugby. So I guess they went ahead and put up this video, and the stuff that they say in it is just wild. So I just got to show you guys, because they're like, there's clearly like no physical advantage now, and it's like the dude looks like a Hemsworth just walked off the set of Thor. They want you to believe that there's no physical advantage with him playing with other women. I'm like, and it's just really bizarre. But before I jump into all of it, which I know that was a long summary, but I went on my rant about the Republicans a little early. You guys can go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on my website, check out different videos that I have. Make sure that you guys are dropping your email. Make sure that if you would like to donate, you can very well do that. You go to blacktnews.com/donate to issue any kind of support. If you want to, give $10, $20, $50, whatever you can do, I really, really appreciate it. It does all help out. There are costs associated with the streaming and the websites and the a lot of people like that intro. I did not just rip that off of nobody. I paid for that music and made sure I could license and other kind of stuff. I did make it, obviously, like the video and other stuff like that. But there's things that not everyone knows behind the scenes that goes into all the work. So if you would like to support, I appreciate you. I know times are tough. We're not able to do that. I appreciate you guys sharing. Go ahead and hit like buttons and comment and tag people, say, hey, you should watch Black Tea. Make sure that you are, if you liked the page before, make sure that you're following the page, because Facebook changed some stuff up. Even if you are watching on Facebook and you like Facebook, make sure that you go ahead and still subscribe to YouTube. And make sure you guys check out different merchandise at the store. That also helps the website as well, like the Make Crack Whack Again, Vote Trump 2024. We got the My Money, My Business. And we got this cool, the Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document shirt. It'll be really good for 4th of July, so you guys can check out that kind of stuff on the website. I also want to thank Brighter Michigan Pack. I'm in their studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. It doesn't really work like that. But I appreciate them uplifting conservative voices and having the space. But yeah, there's no one to complain to if I make you upset today. And who knows, I might not. But again, it really doesn't matter to me. You guys know that I like to start off with something funny. And we all know about the bike ride, Biden falling off of his bike, pretty funny. And so Trump did react to it. So I'm going to play Trump's reaction to Biden falling off of the bike.
It's a disgrace what they're doing to our country. But we can erase the calamities of the Biden years. All it takes is a House, a Senate, and a president who will put America first. One of the greatest travesties of all is to see a person in the White House who, even after years of political experience, has absolutely no clue how to be the President of the United States. And I hope he has recovered, because, as you know, he fell off his bicycle today. No, I'm serious. I hope he's okay. Fell off a bicycle. I make this pledge to you today: I will never, ever ride a bicycle.
So, it's funny that he said that, because there were people joking after it happened with Biden in the fall that were saying, see, Trump, you've never seen him on a bicycle, have you? And for him to come out and say that, like it's a big strategy and election promise, it's just funny. Trump is you can like him or not like him, but he is a funny guy, and he does have a good sort of comedic rhythm or instinct about him. So his rallies are always fun, even if you don't always agree with him on everything that he might even say at his rallies and other stuff like that. They are a lot of fun. He's very entertaining, a bit long-winded at times, but very entertaining because he can be up for like over an hour. But very funny guy. Anyway, oh boy, let's talk about these Republicans again, and then we'll go into everything else. So I think the idea that McConnell, because McConnell's signaled that he's for this not signaled, he said he was for it. So of course he is the minority leader. Well, it's tied, but he's a leader for the Republicans in the Senate and stuff, and they need the 60 votes. Obviously, 10 Republicans strategically they got together to make the bill, so they already know like, hey, it's going to pass because we have 10 Republicans that are on it that work to make this happen, and McConnell isn't going to kill it because he's for it. And they keep saying like, oh, the red flag laws and stuff, that we're not going to do anything that is going to hinder anyone's due process. And I guess their way around it is that, hey, we're not making any laws about it, but you're sending money to states to apply to those red flag laws. And there's mental health and school safety and other things money's going toward. But that's not really good enough that you're signaling that you're willing to fund it, because all this stuff is just always foot in the door things for them eventually trying to get something like universal background checks, which you can't enforce universal background checks unless you have some kind of gun registry. And after you get the gun registry, you can't have like confiscation unless you have a registry. And it just goes one step after another. And once people are disarmed like that, I don't even know if you could do some kind of confiscation like they've done in other countries without something really going down and not going well. I'll just put it lightly like that. But that's their end game. And with that, you don't have a free country anymore. Not here in the U.S. That the purpose of the Second Amendment is to fight against a tyrannical government so you can ensure the liberties that you do have. The purpose of disarming you is so they can make sure that they can keep impeding on all your other rights. That's the end goal. That's the purpose, to not have a free America anymore. And I understand that not everybody likes guns, and some people are scared of guns. There's a really big NRA person, Colin Noor, I think is his name. I don't think it's his real name. It's kind of like his stage NRA name for whatever reason. But he used to be deathly afraid of guns, and then he went to the range and got accustomed to guns, and now he's like an NRA spokesperson. So there's people who are deathly afraid of guns, and they get accustomed to them, and then they understand them, and it's fine. And there's still some people that aren't cool with them, and there's people who have a little bit association with them, may have a few. Like Biden has some guns. His son Hunter illegally got one. His girlfriend, who is his brother's widow, discarded it in a trash can near a school, and the Secret Service had to pick them up. And no one cares on the left about Hunter Biden and his crazy escapades, even though he could totally be charged for lying on the ATF form. Charged, go to jail, at least fine, but none of that. Another reason why I don't want to take Biden seriously on a lot of this stuff, because they like the laws and enforce the laws to go after their enemies, but they don't believe in the laws and actually the principles of the laws and following the laws, etc. But let me show you one thing that a senator said. And now this is from senator in West Virginia. So, man, the comments under her post are crazy. I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. So, you got Senator Caputo here. And I saw this because Tim Pool had retweeted and said, I'll have to check with my lawyer to see how much I'm allowed to spend to make sure you lose your next election. Now Tim has bought a lot of guns, at least according to him, as of late. They get like raided and threatened all the time Um, it's pretty crazy, but a lot of people do not like him. There's people who might want to claim he's far right or on the right. He's not. He's not. Um, but he likes his liberty, and he understands that having a firearm is part of that, and your self-preservation, and also to ensure your rights. So he's getting prepared to primary her, which I think all these Republicans um need to be at least challenged for voting for this stuff. But she claimed the tragedies that have impacted far too many of our communities deserves all of our attention. That's why I have encouraged these bipartisan discussions to come up with a common sense legislative proposals that have potential to help prevent these terrible events from happening in the future. I've also been adamant that the proposals put forth must not infringe on law-abiding citizens' Second Amendment rights. My vote this evening is a vote to continue this critically important debate because it's a debate worth having. My vote also recognizes the hard work my colleagues have done on the framework, increasing funding for mental health services, school safety initiatives, and in our background check system, and are all worthwhile. This bill is not about issues such as red flag laws, which will never be enacted in our state. This bill is about addressing issues such as mental health. It is also about keeping law-abiding gun-owning West Virginians. Maybe I cut off the end of there right now. That's pretty much the statement. So I think it's interesting that she's like, "Oh, it's not about it's not about the red flag laws." Okay, how can it not be about red flag laws when it's in the bill? But she's like telling her constituents, "Hey, it's not going to affect us because that's, I guess, not a thing that we're pushing, etc. I'm just going to vote to fund it across the country, and hopefully, it's never going to bite back on the rest of us." Now, don't you think the fact that they're funding it, the federal government is willing to fund it across the states, kind of signals that this could be a step toward them trying to do some kind of federal red flag law that's not like processing in anyone's mind? So people in the comments are just like, how can you do this? You represent West Virginia. And she does. That's her job. The senators, they represent the states. So how can you go to how can you say, well, this isn't about us because it's not going to affect this state, but I'm just going to fund this for the rest of the states to do this thing that I know you guys wouldn't like, and you guys expect that I wouldn't like, that you guys expect that I would believe is unconstitutional because it doesn't respect due process. Maybe she has a different opinion about that, but she knows her constituents feel that way. And if that's the case, if anyone legitimately feels that way, that they're, not upholding their oaths about protecting the Constitution and stuff. So it's a funny way for them to look at this and be like, it's in there, but it's not really about that. Oh, yes, it is. And that's the main reason why Republicans are freaking out and upset about this. Now, maybe McConnell wants to push this because he wants to take gun control off the table as far as what they're going to be talking about, what they're going to be pushing for in November, etc. Maybe that's they're trying to have a different conversation, right? And say, well, Biden, you can't use this as a wedge issue because we already worked together and we passed something together. Maybe that's his thinking. Okay. They will never stop with just that, though. They will never stop with just that. They will always push for something more. So don't think that Biden in the media are going to be like, oh, well, the Republicans voted for that one bill. They're going to say that bill didn't go hard enough and Republicans need to do something more. That's what they're going to say. So if that's the thinking, it's terribly naive. And I hope there's kind of more to it on his end, though I disagree with him. But it's really naive, and he's not a dumb man. He's not a dumb man. So I don't understand that. I also don't understand giving Biden a win, giving him a legislative win, because at least Biden can be like, well, I did something we haven't been able to do in a very long time, move some legislation on gun control. They're not going to say that that's a Republican Democrat victory. They're going to say it was a Biden victory. So why McConnell and other Republicans would like to give that to Biden, I don't know. Because if you go on Twitter and read comments when they're like, we need to do something and nothing's being done, his side of the aisle, they're mad at Republicans, but they're also mad at Democrats because they think they're do-nothings that aren't wielding their power properly. So you have to know them not being able to legislatively accomplish something hurts them. So it doesn't make sense on that end. And it also doesn't make sense because you're ticking off your constituents. You are ticking off your base. Now, maybe they feel like the wave is so red that they can take the risk. And perhaps that's the case. And I think that's probably still likely the case. But I think you are shooting yourself in the foot a bit, slowing down the momentum and possibly causing a lot of primaries. Now, maybe they think that they're not concerned about that because they have such a big war chest that people can't properly really come up and challenge them. Maybe there's that. But I do think people who waver on stuff like this do need to be challenged. And messages like, oh, it's not going to affect West Virginia. Ma'am, why are you supporting bad legislation? You're a senator doing stuff on the federal level that you know your constituents wouldn't like, and there's always opening your foot in the door to make more things happen down the line. People are not happy about this. I'm not happy about this. And you can say, well, what's the big deal? I don't like red flag laws. If someone's doing something that's wackadoodle enough, and then they're a danger to themselves and other people, if something is going on that serious, give them their proper due process. Some states maybe can do this better than others. I told a story that happened 2018 about police showed up in a man's house. He didn't have prior warning. They came to take his gun, and they got into a scuffle, and his gun went off, the one they were trying to confiscate, and then the police shot him, and he died. And the police afterwards were just like, well, we could have prevented something terrible from happening. Oh, aren't you heroes in your hypothetical world? And then some of his relatives were just like his niece was like, my uncle wouldn't have hurt anybody. Now, that's something family would say, so I don't know. But this man is dead. You knock on his door to take his stuff. And then you shoot. After the gun went off, no one was harmed during the scuffle, but then they shot him and it led to his death. Because of a red flag law, not because he was actively participating in some kind of crime and some altercation where he was trying to harm somebody, didn't threaten to do some kind of school shooting or something like that. They have their suspicion, and I read several articles. I don't know why, and I don't know who reported him. Again, this happened a couple years ago, but he's dead because of the red flag law, and I don't trust the government with that much power. It was not too long ago that our government was using the IRS to target Tea Party conservatives. Like if you had a name or something applying for something and it had like the word patriot, for example, in there, they were going to discriminate against you. That's something that happened when Biden was last in the White House. He was the vice president then, but a lot of the crazy stuff with Obama is just a continuation into the Biden administration. Only Biden is... They're a lot more radical. And he's not charming. And everything is in flames. But that happened. And you have the situation in Uvalde, which people are using as a springboard to push the discussion further. And people should be having discussions on how you can help secure schools, which, by the way, Biden is not for hardening schools as far as like figuring out how to make them more safe or having more security, other kind of stuff on there. That's what the press secretary said. He's not for that. So there's other things that other Republicans and teachers and community members and stuff want to talk about, but those aren't things that they're interested in. They're interested in things like, well, let's throw some money at mental health and maybe school protection and red flag laws, which throwing money at situations and stuff, not everyone uses money responsibly. So that's not always a good way to solve problems, especially with the government who wastes things. They waste things. Oh my gosh. Especially when they know you're throwing money at them. They will find a way to spend it. That doesn't mean they will find a way to spend it well. And even if it's money well spent, that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to use it. So Uvalde, here's a picture of the police department. Now this is from some time ago, 2018. Uvalde Police Department is pleased to announce that we have completed the process and been awarded grant funds through the Office of the Governor to outfit every Uvalde police officer with a level 4 body armor. This important piece of legislation provided funding to equip police officers with body armor rated to stop rifle rounds. Okay, so this is still on their Facebook. And I'm not saying that this isn't money well spent. Like, I'm glad that they have this. Don't get me wrong. But why didn't they stop the shooter? Why were they waiting around in the hallway? Which, by the way, here's a picture from inside. They got vests on. They got the shields. They got their own guns. But they waited around in the hallways, just standing around, not doing anything, while the psychopath killed little kids. And I already said this, but one of the teachers who was killed, she called her husband, who was a police officer for the district, and he tried to rescue her, and he was detained by the other officers, and they took his gun. That's crazy. His wife is inside dying, shot, and he can't go in and save her. That's insane. Now, I'm pro back the blue, all the other kind of stuff, but you got to understand, these people do not actually have a duty to protect you. And in this situation, they stop people from protecting their kids, their wives. Your self-preservation is your responsibility. Sometimes the government fails, and this is a huge government failure. This needs to be the talk, not people getting up in arms about the red flag laws. And like, this needs to be the conversation. And they are doing an investigation into all this. But when Republicans were like, let's wait for some more information, you have people like Eric Swalwell and other folks who are just like, oh my gosh, wait for information. Yeah, because even stuff that they reported, like, it was believed that that a teacher saw the gunman, and the door was propped open and came in, and the door was still propped open and it came in. That wasn't even true. The door was closed, but the door should have, I guess, locked when it closed, and it didn't lock. So they need to find out why that door didn't lock when it closed or whatever. But there's just details that were wrong, like initially coming out with reporting. And I guess misreported probably too. So yeah, it's important to take a step back, because you need some clarity to address these things. You need the knowledge, because if you don't have the proper knowledge, how are you going to address the issues that actually led up to this, to prevent something like this? So you need to be armed with information, and you also need some space to breathe, because it's a very emotional, devastating thing that has happened. It's very, very tragic. But you do still need some critical thinking, some rational skills to figure out what's best. Because the tragic fact is that a lot of these gun laws and stuff that people want to push still don't help. There was a piece, now granted this was like back in 2000, maybe 15, 16, when Marco Rubio was running for president, and he said a lot of these gun laws are being proposed wouldn't have stopped these mass shootings. And so I think maybe this was a fact check article. I can't remember if it was AP or NPR. I did share it on Facebook maybe a week or two ago. But they went through so many like shootings, and they looked at the different laws that were proposed, and they were able to prove begrudgingly, I'm sure, that Marco Rubio was actually correct. Because even if there were like waiting law, like waiting time periods or whatever, someone went off and like just stole a gun from a relative or something like that. Or there's other laws that were in place that people just blatantly broke, or someone got a weapon when they weren't supposed to get a weapon, but there's some kind of like logging error that happened, because mistakes sometimes happen in those cases. But a lot of things that people were trying to talk about ain't gonna do the work. So I don't understand Republicans being willing to tick off their base in such a way and then hand Biden a win. Is it worth him not being able to say, "Oh, these Republicans won't work with me on anything," because they'll just find something else that the Republicans are evil about. What sort of like agreements are you supposed to have when the other side like calls you racist? Will be on the side of Bull Connor and a bunch of other garbage. They've slandered and said so many terrible things, just and so many lies. And you're hoping that you can come together for this, so you can take it off the table, so they won't have some kind of ammo. No, they'll just find something else to demonize you about, so you can at least make sure that you're making smart legislation. So I don't get these guys. Again, I don't know what much we can do other than go ahead and call your senators and let them know that you are angry about this. You can, I guess they can know the level of the anger, and you could like protest and other kind of stuff like that, so they can get the message that this is not going to happen in the dead of night without people being aware. If there's anyone who's planning to run, they could launch their campaign immediately and start fundraising and see what happens. Probably a smart time if anyone has those plans. I guess never quite too early. But McConnell, they have enough Republicans that are for it right now. Like Lindsey Graham is one of the Republicans, and apparently he's like pro the red flag laws. Of course, there's Mitt Romney, and I don't think you can say anything to Mitt Romney. He likes the attaboys from the media when he can get them. So I don't foresee him swaying on it. Corman in Texas, who's been like leading the charge on this, people in Texas have made it known that they are not happy. And he's assumed to be the anointed one to take over McConnell's position. It would be kind of funny if they got him out. But this seems like a pretty big flip for him and some other people, at least on the surface. So it looks like a betrayal for a lot of these folks. I'm not surprised about Murkowski, not surprised about that. Not really surprised about Romney. I guess I'm mildly disappointed, but just disappointed in general. But there's other people I'm looking at the list. I'm like, why? So, Mike Lee said, process matters. This evening, we received text on a new gun proposal, and a blind vote was required within an hour with only moments to review, no committee hearings, and no regular order. A vote was held with implications concerning an essential constitutional right. The American people deserve better from the world's greatest deliberative body. He put in quotation marks. Rand Paul tweeted, while we have many laws in place, sorry, that's not where the thread begins. No one wants to see guns in the hands of criminals, and no one wants to see tragedies like we saw recently in Texas. I'm both a law-abiding gun owner and a parent, and I want our schools and kids to be safe. While we have many laws in place to do that already, there should be things we can agree on as legislators to improve upon this. For example, I support legislation to include juvenile records of violent crimes to be included in background checks. And that's actually a good thing that they're talking about. Are now I don't know how much they're pushing that it's going to get the access to that, because I know it's like delayed time enabled to look at this stuff, but I don't know if that actually means that they can access those records. So that's something they got to make sure is a thing, because otherwise that would just be pretty useless. Looking at the recent criminal past of anyone is a good idea before accessing gun ownership. However, that idea was paired with many questionable or bad ones in this legislation. I'm concerned about constitutional deficiencies in many red flag laws. I cannot support any legislation that funds or encourages laws that allow ex parte gun confiscation without legal representation, or even sometimes without prior notification to the defendant of any accusation at all. I cannot support legislation that funds or encourages laws that allow gun confiscation with a standard lower than the constitutional criminal standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. I cannot support legislation that funds or encourages gun confiscation predicated on anonymous accusations. Yeah, you should be able to face your accuser. Right? I also think it unwise to prohibit the appropriated funds from being used for firearms or firearms training for any school personnel. In fact, we should be doing the opposite, encouraging schools to train and arm proper personnel as desired and needed in the schools. Unfortunately, this legislation was assembled, as many are, in secret, absent well-placed leaks to journalists. There doesn't appear to be a willingness or time provided to read, understand, debate, or amend this bill. I will try anyway. To this end, I will introduce amendments to correct the constitutional deficiencies of this bill and hope my colleagues and the Senate leadership will do the same. Good on Rand Paul. Good on other Republicans speaking out about it. I don't. He said he doubts it'll do any good. I share his doubts. I do share his doubts. I think the only way that this thing goes down in flames is if Democrats really try to introduce some really bad stuff in it, and it gets put in there, and then Republicans on good conscience can't vote for it. But who knows if they'll go in good conscience about it, and I don't know, because they themselves, they may want something that is more sweeping, and they may want to stick other things in it, but at the same time they can know that the Republicans are about to really tick off their base. And again, I still think Republicans are going to have huge success in November. But I do think this is going to stifle enthusiasm, and I don't think you should underestimate the power of petty angry conservative voters. I really don't think you should underestimate that. Because at the end of the day, there are people who didn't feel that Romney was conservative enough because of things like Romney Care and et cetera, and didn't come out and vote for him. And Obama won his second term, et cetera. And it people can prove to be spiteful about, at the end of the day, especially when you're interfering with people's constitutional rights. And again, with red flag laws, New York has red flag laws, and it didn't stop the shooter in Buffalo who flat out announced that he wanted to have a school shooting. He was still able to get his gun. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense, especially since we know the Uvalde shooter. There were things that people could have reported about him that were like criminal. He was abusive to other people, to women, threatened to assault people. He had like a bag of cats that he was torturing. He was like shooting people with like BB guns. Like it sounded like he was a terror. And as far as them expanding the background checks into juvie records, there's people whose records they want expunged, and there's people who they don't want charged for different stuff, because they don't want them to be in some kind of like pipeline from juvie to school to juvie to jail later in life. So if people aren't going to actually prosecute people, and that's another thing. Like, it doesn't seem like these people are passionate about stopping crimes and criminals. I just see their end game or end goal of infringing on people's rights so they can continue to push their agendas down everyone's throats. So I'm not happy. I'm not happy with the Republicans right now. Um, if you're someone who knows someone higher up who can relay this sort of anger, I suggest you make phone calls and send emails, and that you definitely called your senators, that you um, let it be known. Organize a protest if you have to, but this ain't cool. And it's stupid. It's stupid. I don't like it, but it's also stupid. Like, it's not a good strategy. I don't. A lot of things bother me, but just it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, and that bothers me. Anyway, let's talk about the mayor of New York. I saw people saying that they actually missed De Blasio, and I'm that's wild because some people really hated him toward the end. Now Eric Adams, he is obviously a black guy. They love their diversity, folks. It's in New York. If you're gonna be, it's a pretty high profile position as far as like if you're a mayor of a big city, but still like you're on a national level. Although there's a lot of buzz and talk about you and the stuff that you do because it is a huge city. So it's not far fetched to believe that he will be set up in some kind of capacity later, if it's not 2024 or 2028 or whatever, to be some kind of nominee. But he has such radical positions on things that I don't know about that. I'm sure they'll still push it because they push radical people all the time, but I don't understand the need to be so crazy. I don't understand that. So there was a city councilwoman who was quoted in this article about the 200K being issued to drag story time. And she said, I'm quoted in this article, and I will reiterate, any school in my district participating in drag queen degeneracy risks losing their funding. Adult drag performers have no business in our schools, and they will not be in my district, period. And so the mayor had a problem with her and came after her. And it's just really, really weird. And I had a conversation online to a Democrat who's just like, I don't try to downplay it a little bit, like they didn't like it, but they're like, oh, this is such a weird fringe thing. I'm like, 200K went to this stuff in New York City. Like there are people like actively from that side pushing this policy. And I said, it's really bizarre to me because I don't see a political, it's not politically advantageous. So I don't understand it on that level. And they didn't get it either, and it was really annoying to them. And I said, look, I'm a Republican, but my representation is going to be mostly blue, at least where I live. I just live in a blue area, and I would rather, if that happens, and my congressperson and my, if all those have to be people that are blue, which with the Congress, I at least hope we can really change. But like the really, really local stuff, not optimistic, but you always have to try. But I'd rather they not be crazy. I'd rather they not double down on a lot of this fringe stuff. But it seems like that's what they want anyway. And so he trying to find the quote in this article. So New York posted another article about it. He didn't like this. He called them the groomers and talked about how their representation and here we go. At a time when our LGBTQ plus communities are under increased attack across the country, we must use our education system to educate. The goal is not only for our children to be academically smart, but also emotionally intelligent. Why do you need a drag queen to teach your children to be emotionally intelligent? Anyway, drag storytellers and the libraries and schools that support them are advancing a love of diversity, personal expression, and literacy that is the core to what our city embraces. So now, I don't get this. And you know what? You should not bring people into the schools to talk to the kids unless there's some kind of like leaders in the community, people who are really going to inspire children. Like if you would bring in an author, kids would be like, "Oh, that's cool. I want to write a book one day. I want to do something like that." You bring in police officers, like, "Hey, kids, I'm your local police." Like, if you need to bridge and to if they're in harm or whatever, to trust officers in situations or whatever, to encourage people to grow up and to want to help other folks, like a firefighter or like things like that. Why would you bring in trans people? I mean, like not trans, but drag queens. Why would you do that? Now, I read yesterday there was a quote that from a drag queen that the Blaze wrote a story about, and they said that it's good to have these things because it teach kids there's no borders and no boundaries. And so there are borders and boundaries. They just life, biologically there are borders and boundaries. There are borders and boundaries, I think, with respect to morals and values and things. But drag queens make a mockery of gender, of culture, and those aren't my words, those are RuPaul's words. The point of drag is they said that it will never be mainstream because it mocks everything. So when kids go to school to learn about math, science, and all these sorts of things, and and you at home teach them about the different structure and discipline, and you hope to some degree that those things are being respected and continued on at school. They bring in people who don't believe in that, and the core mission of kind of their profession is to reject everything. So it seems pretty destructive to want that in the schools. Like, it's really strange, it's really gross, and I do mean gross. Perverse. There is no good reason to focus so much on drag queens doing these things rather than like I said, bringing in an author of like a reputable sort of book. I don't mean someone who writes something weird and creepy. Bringing in someone to tell their story, or when I was in elementary, I remember people brought in like motivational speakers that had like a tremendous sort of turnaround in life, from like rags to riches kind of inspiring stories like that. Don't bring in the drag queens. Unless there's something within them that you want your children to reflect. And is it just sass and confidence? Because I don't think that's all that maybe kids are gonna, I don't know. Doesn't seem like that's the end goal in the agenda. But another thing that he did that's weird is that they had all these dirt bikes that they confiscated across the city that are illegal street bikes, I guess. And they just got like a bulldozer and just crushed them because they were terrorizing the city. Like, why? 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 That is someone's property. There are people murdering each other on the street. Be released.
ATV,
Here's his comments.
dirt bikes, and TVs. They are not only a nuisance and an annoyance to us, but they're extremely dangerous. And we know that. We see them all the time. and we hear them all times and nights. We see the large numbers that are moving throughout our street, and we want to be clear that this is not acceptable.
Clowns. Absolute clowns. Do you want to know what else is like dangerous and terrorizing the city and is annoying, but it's also like just really dangerous? How about some of these people who are like career criminals who just get released back on the street and attack people on subways, broad daylight, you know, check out hashtag Asian hate crimes, stop Asian hate or whatever it is. Look at what's happening, subways, people being attacked, etc. People stabbing each other in broad daylight. Like I was talking about going to Comic-Con in New York with my sister, and I'm like, and I went a couple years ago, and I'm like, oh, Hell's Kitchen doesn't, at least it didn't seem that bad walking through it, because we actually stayed in like Jersey because it was cheaper, and we were trying to like save every nickel and dime we had, and we would take the train and then we would walk to the Javits Center, and it, you know, we did quite a bit of walking. We went, you know, down New York to the right down in the square where there's all the billboards and other kind of stuff like that, and we tried to travel as much as we could, like on foot. Ate it. There's like a really good pizza place went to with huge pizzas and stuff. Mostly had a lot of street food, and I'm just like, I don't know about all that now. Crime is just wild. I told my sister, I'm like, you know, they like stabbing people in broad daylight. She's like, broad daylight? I'm like, yes, broad daylight. They are wild out here. And the priority here is these bikes and to crush them. And apparently they decided to crush them and not auction them off, because a lot of comments were like, this is crazy. This is a waste of money. And a lot of people don't like the confiscation of people's property like that anyway. But people are mostly saying this is a waste of money to go ahead and to rent the bulldozer. It's just a waste of taxpayer time. And then you could have sold them at some kind of auction at least and generated some more funds for the city. But I guess he wanted to just destroy them so they wouldn't creep back up to the city. I don't know. New York seems wild, guys. New York seems pretty wild. It just seems like there's better use of time. Okay, last thing I want to talk about. I guess there's two more things. I got to show you this crazy video about Columbus, and they released this video. They have like a gay car, a gay police car. I'm not joking. I mean, the car isn't like a homosexual, but you'll see it.
Hi, I'm Officer Lutz with the Columbus Division of Police. I'm your LGBTQIA+ liaison officer, and we're unveiling right now our Pride Cruiser for the month of June. I'm excited about this cruiser. It's great for representation.
I don't have much to say, guys. How many other, like, I don't know, groups have special liaison officers? And it says, please report hate crimes. It's like, I don't like hate crimes, by the way. I mean, if someone's doing something and it's like racially motivated, I mean, it could very well be terrorism. So I'm not saying that it doesn't matter why people decide to do certain things. But if someone does harass you, it is a crime. You know, if someone like physically assaults you, if someone like misgenders you, that's something you just have to live with in a sane society. But I don't think we have one of those anymore. That's all. I just wanted to show you. I don't have much to say. I think it's just what it is. It's just what it is, guys. I want to show you this video from 60 Minutes. It's pure gaslighting. Now, there was some news on the world stage as far as like women's sports and swimming. that it would be barred as far as swimming on the world stage for people like Leah Thomas, for people to just kind of choose their I don't know, preferred sort of where they swim, which is only something that trans people can do. So it is like a special sort of class thing going on there. But 60 Minutes Australia decided to post this post in reference because Rugby League decided to make a ruling on it too. So this is the original tweet from 60 Minutes, and they tweeted this out today. Rugby League has made a ruling to ban transgender athletes from competing in international events just days after their ban from swimming. In 2017, Dr. Lisa Watson, a specialist in transgender health issues, spoke with 60 Minutes over a decision to ban AFL player Hannah Monsey. I guess we'll hear his name in a second. So this happened in 2017, but they just reposted this. And there's something so wild in the video that was a reason why I have to share with you guys.
Do you accept the AFL's argument that you do have a size advantage over some of your opponents?
I think the biggest issue is not necessarily that I'm too big or too strong now. It's more, okay, you're already big, you're already strong, whatever. But what if you were to get into that elite training environment and they were to build you up, put on an extra 15 kilos and you just push everyone aside? But physiologically, that's just not going to happen.
The people who...
Hold on. That's relevant though, right? Look at this dude. Look at him. Look at him. That is relevant. You're talking about playing rugby with females? Look at him. That's a crazy size. Oh my God. He is big for a man. I don't know his height, but he's like looking like a big dude. Look at him compared to the person interviewing him. Look at him. Look at him. Now let's watch. Let's keep watching with this doctor.
Not going to happen.
The people who seem to have the biggest problem with this is male administrators, but the female competitors haven't raised their voices at all.
And by the way, I'm sure that's not because they're happy to have Mr. Incredible Hulk playing with them. I'm sure that's not why they're not speaking up, because they're happy about that. Maybe they don't want to speak up because they're afraid of what kind of backlash could be for them, could happen on their behalf. Because a lot of people wouldn't speak out loud about Leah. Well, there are people shutting them down. And if they had a problem, they brought in like counselors to talk about Leah Thomas to them, saying this is like non-negotiable. Leah's going to be there, but you guys can talk to your therapist if you need to kind of work it out. Even though you had all these girls who are being, pushed out basically in spots where they should be in because there's a male competing in their sport. So saying that other women aren't speaking out, there's people who feel like they can't speak out or they will be demeaned. So saying like, oh, the women aren't speaking out, kudos to the men for speaking out about this stuff. But like, by the way, do you guys think this doctor looks more like Billy Nye, the actor, or George W. Bush? I'm not sure. I just wanted to put that out there. I'm not sure. But let's keep watching. We didn't get to the crazy part yet.
Lisa Watson knows better than most what Hannah's going through. She's a doctor.
I think that was like that smile there is when like I thought more Bush. But anyway, let's
better than most what Hannah's going through. She's a doctor who specialises in transgender health issues and is also a transgender athlete. After 2 years of hormone replacement therapy, she says Hannah's body has no residual benefits from her time as a male.
Okay. That's it. That's where I wanted to get to. The no residual benefits. No residual benefit. Let's go back to him. Look at him. He looks like he could be a Hemsworth. He looks like he needs to replace Natalie Portman as female Thor. Look at him. No residual effects. Are you kidding me? And they say because I'm sorry. We can go back and listen to the explanation.
Increased. She's now muscle frame. Prior to her transitioning, she had a V8 motor powering this big muscle frame. Now she's transitioned and her testosterone level has dropped and her muscle mass has decreased and her strength and stamina has decreased. She's now got a little 4-cylinder engine, so she's actually at a physical disadvantage.
Dr. Watson suspects there are
A disadvantage to who? To who? I'm going to play the rest, but I'm going to come back to this point.
other, more sinister factors at play.
I'm just wondering whether they did not want to have someone like Hannah representing their new league. They wanted a presentable, beautiful female who could be the face of AFLW. A trans woman may not be what they desired.
Okay, guys. Okay, so they're saying he's at a disadvantage now, probably compared to where he was before he started taking hormones and all this other kind of stuff. Sure, but compared to other women, if everybody in this video got into a fight, him versus him, the journalist, and the doctor here, George W. in a wig, if they all got into a fight, Hannah is going to win hands down, whether it's taking them one-on-one, whether they're going both of them against Hannah. Like, Hannah's going to take it. Hannah is going to take it. Hannah's going to take them, Natalie Portman Thor, Tessa Thompson, everybody. The gaslighting is crazy that you have a doctor that is claiming that there's no advantage. So when these people try to, like, oh, we have all these experts that we're going to quote in all these fields. By the way, there was some article that came out the other day that admitted that they didn't have a lot of data and research on this stuff. So you got to listen to trans activists. So yeah, that's where we're at in our society. But when you hear these people insist these things, remember the sort of illustrations like this. We're like, there's just no advantage. No advantage. If this dude was on a rugby team with females, there'd be no advantage. He admits that he's bigger than all the other women and stuff, but they're like, well, I can't do anything about that. So tough luck for you. Go play with the men. You could grow out your hair and still be a guy, obviously. It's just insane. This world is insane. I'm done. If you guys enjoyed the show, please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different articles that I have on the website. Check out different videos like the Dana Nessel one that I did post it last week. It's a very important video, and I'm pretty sure the media does not want other people to be informed and know about the sort of things that she said. So make sure that you guys go ahead and share it around. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, whether it's $10, $20, $50, $100, whatever you can do. I really, really appreciate it. If you can't do it that kind of way, make sure that you guys are liking, that you're sharing, that you're subscribing, that you're hitting notification bells and the following. If you're on Facebook and you like the page, they changed their whole kind of thing up and now it's following. So make sure that you are following it as well. If you like watching on Facebook, still go ahead and still subscribe on YouTube. All that really does help me. I'm close to, I have almost 17,000 followers on Facebook. My biggest following is like between my two accounts on Twitter, on TikTok, I have over 100,000 followers, but on YouTube I have close to 1,000, and that starts getting me into different sort of things that my account can do. So if you do have a YouTube channel, please go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And all of my links with my socials should be in the description if you're watching on Facebook and watching on YouTube. Also, check out different merchandise that I have at the store, like the goat hoodie that I have, and also have a t-shirt. I'm not the victim you're looking for. Be better, not bitter. And again, 4th of July is coming up, so this the Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document shirt be really cool to have. So go ahead and order that stuff. God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow for more Black